going to have our guest, Javed Rana, is joining us from discuss the latest developments in the Middle East. Javed, welcome to A News once again. Let's start by talking about Iran. Iran's foreign minister has commented on Israel's latest attacks, warning that Israel should refrain from any further action. How do you perceive the current state of relations between Israel and Iran, and what implications might this have for regional stability?
Well, the fact the Iranians have played down the Israeli attack near Isfahan, that does indicate that Iran doesn't want to retaliate this particular Israeli attack. I think it's seen this the fear of a bigger escalation in the region, the fear of a bigger conflict in the region. I think that fear is somehow fading away now. The tension is going to subside. But obviously, both countries are going to return to the previous pattern, which includes Iran would continue to use proxies such as Houthis from Yemen, Hezbollah from Lebanon, and other Shia militia militant groups from Iraq and Syria against Israel. That pattern, I think, would be once again would be active. And obviously, we know that Israel has also a very lethal proxy in the region, across the region, and that is the Daesh, the ISIS. So I think, again, the Iranians would face the terror attacks from the IS, and also, I would say, the death squads that Israel had hired inside Iran to assassinate previously Iranian nuclear scientists. I think those would also be reactivated. Those kind of activities would be resumed. But so far as the fear of a bigger conflict is concerned, I think that seems to be now fading away. That is the picture which is developing, because despite the fact that Iran made a lot of hue and cry that if it is attacked, its response would be at a maximum level, I think we have not seen that since. And then there is also a very important point that Israel opted to carry out drone attacks. And those were, according to the Iranian media, just 3 drone attacks, which were shot down by the Iranian defense system. So again, in that context, it seems that I think there would not be further retaliation. But it seems Iran has sent a clear message to Tel Aviv, and that is that if ever any embassy anywhere in the world is attacked by Israel, it will have to face the consequences. Iranian attack was much bigger, but that was also calibrated, and that was also calculated to the extent that there would not be any damage. One girl was injured seriously in the Iranian attack, and then there were damages to the Israeli military bases. And I think now what we have seen, going by the reports coming from Iran, that does suggest that there is no casualty. There is a possibility of maybe some damages to the Iranian military bases there. And very importantly, I think Israel has opted not to carry out attack on Iranian nuclear installations.
Mr. Rana, do you think Iran is going to take any actions, any more actions actually?
I don't think that Iran would take further action. I think the situation is as such, where Iranians seems to be now playing down Israeli attack. And I think the fact Israel has opted not to carry out attack on Iranian nuclear installations, that is extremely important. Had Israel opted to carry out attack on Iranian nuclear facilities, I think the situation could have been escalated. Iran could have gone for a full-blown war against Israel. That has not happened. Israel has just opted to go along with a few drone attacks, which according to the Iranian claims, they shot them down. So I think it seems to be all over. Both countries have breached each other's sovereignty. And I think that was the main point, because this was the first time that Iranian sovereignty was breached when its diplomatic installation was attacked in Damascus. So in return to that, in retaliation to that, there was an attack by Iran on Israel, and then Israel had to, have some sort of face saving, And I think that is why what we have seen now, it seems that an attack with a few drones near Isfahan, that is just symbolic. It is a calibrated response. Now, the question is why Israel has opted to have a very kind of response which does not match with the political rhetoric that we have been hearing from the Prime Minister Netanyahu for the last 20 years, because Netanyahu was waiting an opportunity where he could have gone for a full-scale war with Iran. That has not happened. The reason is quite simple, that the US straight away refused that in case Israel go for a war against Iran, in that situation, US would not be part of it. US would only be part of it to defend Israel, which USA, Britain, and France did defend through its air defense missile shields, and Jordan was also with the Israel. So I think now it's seen that the both countries would not escalate so far as direct confrontation is concerned. Both countries had to breach each other's sovereignty, which they did effectively. I think from here onwards, for the time being, it seems that again we will see the previous pattern. Hezbollah would keep on attacking the apartheid state from the northern part of Israel. We will see Houthis attacks in the Red Sea and maybe occasionally on to Israel through missile. And also we will see that the Shia militia would stay active in Iraq and Syria. I think those kind of activities, insurgent attacks would be there, but so far as a bigger conflict is concerned, I think those threats seems to be over, at least for the time being. And I think this is a desperate moment for Prime Minister Netanyahu, because he wanted to drag USA into this bigger conflict. And it seems that perhaps there is some sort of unwritten, unspoken understanding between Tehran and Washington, and that is that Iran, we have noticed that during last couple of weeks, particularly during last couple of days when there was an attack on Iranian diplomatic mission in Damascus, we have not seen the Shia militias carrying out attacks on US interest in the Middle East, like the US military bases in the Middle East. That has not happened. So Iran has also, I think, has a little success story in terms of isolating Israel from the full-scale support of the US. Now it seems that this American support to the Israel is becoming limited, and Americans feel that the Prime Minister Netanyahu is a liability. Israel has become a liability. There is a general election, the presidential election in the US, and Biden can potentially lose it. And one of the reasons, obviously, would be the large-scale genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. That is a real problem. The problems like these direct confrontation between Israel and Iran, that is an offshoot problem. And I think Israel has also managed to at least drag international attention from Gaza's genocide. There has been a lot of focus on Iran and Israel's direct confrontation. In coming days and weeks, I think we will see that again Israel would return to the previous pattern, and that unfortunately does involve resuming a military operation, possibly starting off a military operation in Rafah crossing. That is where the real problem lies. There are 1.5 million Palestinians, and Israel would not be reluctant to launch a ground offensive and larger air offensive that would involve a larger scale of casualties of Palestinians.
And what do you mean, lastly, I would like to ask you about that too. After all of these happenings, after all of these occurrences with Yemen and everything, are you expecting a proxy war to continue as it was before? Or are we expecting a resolution that is finally going to end in a position?
I think the reports of a possible ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, that there are now reports that does indicate that perhaps that is not coming anytime soon. And Qatar is quite upset. And Qatar is quite upset about Israel because Israel playing very deceptively. So I think now it seems that Israel would resume larger attacks on the Palestinians, and that is where the real problem lies. And we have already noticed that the Hezbollah has been carrying out attacks in the northern part of Israel, and Israel in retaliation has been carrying out attack in the southern part of Lebanon. So that war is already there. That does mean to Israel that the hundreds of thousands of its citizens have displaced internally. A significant number of them have left Israel. And I think that is a bigger problem for Israel, or politically also, and also in terms of economy, because its economy would not be able to withstand more shocks if this war continues. So in a broader picture, again, we'll be coming back to the same cycle of violence that we have been witnessing. It's going to be the northern part of Israel, which would be hot again, and then again, unfortunately, the blood of Palestinians would be again shed by the Israel. And then again, there is another front that is the West Bank and the East Jerusalem, where particularly in the West Bank, we have seen the settlers are quite active. They have been taking over the residential buildings, the farms of Palestinians. They've been killing them. And then a large number of Palestinians, they run into thousands of Palestinians. Those have been arrested by Israel. They are being tortured in Israel jail. The Palestinian women are being arrested. That is another tragedy which is taking place. But the fact that there is a large scale of genocide of Palestinians happening right now in Gaza, that is not taking our attention of the kind of the atrocities that Israel has been committing in the West Bank. The younger populations is being arrested, tortured, and killed there. Hundreds of Palestinians have been killed there. So that is another part of it. On a diplomatic front, we have already seen that the US has vetoed the two-state solution in the UN Security Council. And that is where the real problem lies. It smacks of the hypocrisy and the double standards of the Americans. On one hand, they've been telling to everybody that we want a two-state solution, and it has to be pre-1967 border. But now we have seen that the kind of the stance that the Americans have come up with, they are saying that let there be direct negotiation between Palestinians and Israel, which means that actually Americans want Israel to get maximum concessions, which would include that what I think the current plan probably is that they don't want to go beyond the borders of 1967 war. That would mean that Israel would lose a lot of territory, which its settlers and its army have been taking over in the West Bank, in the East Jerusalem. I think that is where the real problem lies. And that is where nobody is looking at it. There's a lot of talk about the two-state solution. But when it comes to the practical measure, there was an opportunity for the US to revive its the prestige. That has not happened. US has lost it once again. It has simply endorsed its general perception that Israel is the American love child. It would do anything, no matter how illegal that may be, no matter how immoral that may be. That is no longer the concerns of the Americans. They are trying to create a fake perception, which has not been created, that the US doesn't want Israel to continue a war inside Gaza, but at the same time, it has been supplying all kind of weapons. It has been providing all kind of the diplomatic support. So it all smacks double standards and the height of the hypocrisy.
Javed, thank you so much for your updates. Thank you for joining us here on A News.
The growing tide of anti-Israel sentiments What you see behind me is just tip of the iceberg of what is happening in the country. More than half of $52 billion black CIA budget is spent on espionage network in Pakistan. How would you handle it?
The US has looked upon Pakistan as an ally at one point and then as an enemy at the same time.
That is going to be the first legal reason on the basis of which he is going to be instantly ousted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Joining us live, Javed Rana, who's an expert on politics and geostrategic issues.
In the world politics, which is not being driven by any moral principle, it is being driven by the hard geostrategic realities. In a broader picture, more countries would aspire to have nuclear weapons.